Hello everyone. 안녕하세요. Hey. So, big news this year. The merge is coming. So this is the merge. This is Ethereum's switch to proof of stake. This is something that we have been working on for the last really the last 7 years. So work on Ethereum's proof of stake protocol probably started around 2014. We started doing a lot of research on many different kinds of proof of stake protocols. Tried to understand issues around what weak subjectivity is, what some of the differences between different proof of stake protocols are, how a traditional BFT works. In 2017, we published the paper for Casper FFG. And the project slowly started turning from something more theoretical into something that's closer and closer to a reality. So in December 2020, the Ethereum beacon chain launched. So in December 2020, we launched the Ethereum proof of stake chain, and anyone could deposit their Ether into the proof of stake chain and become an Ethereum validator. And the proof of stake chain has been working, just running by itself for almost 2 years now. And what's going to happen very soon is the merge. So the merge is when the existing proof of work chain stops working, and all of the activity, all of the accounts, all of the transactions, everything on the existing Ethereum chain is automatically migrated, it's automatically moved to the proof of stake chain. So this is the end of proof of work for Ethereum. It's a complete switch to proof of stake. Proof of stake will be finished after this. And we'll be focusing on other upgrades. So data sharding is one, and plenty of other upgrades for Ethereum as well. So the Ethereum protocol right now is in the middle of a long and complicated transition toward becoming a much more robust and much more powerful system. Right, and the merge is only one part of this, right? So the merge is Ethereum's switch to proof of stake. Aside from proof of stake, we also care about sharding, so increasing the Ethereum protocol scalability. The Verge, which is moving Ethereum over to Verkle trees, which will make it much easier to run an Ethereum node and to verify blocks. And so it'll make the Ethereum network more decentralized. And there are a lot of other smaller upgrades that are coming and that are being developed already as well. So a lot of complicated things are happening in Ethereum right now. But this is all to help achieve the final goal of creating this base layer, which is secure, which is very decentralized, and which is very scalable, and on top of which it will be possible to build all of the blockchain applications and the whole blockchain future that we have always been dreaming of building. So what are the goals of the Ethereum base layer, right? So the Ethereum, the main goal is to be a dependable and secure base layer for applications and highly performant layer 2 scaling solutions. So this gets us to Ethereum's rollup-centric roadmap. So this is a document that I published almost 2 years ago. And when I published this, I think the Ethereum community was moving in this direction already. And the core idea here is what we call a rollup-centric roadmap. So the idea is, instead of Ethereum itself trying to scale and provide the very fast transactions and provide everything that users and applications need, the Ethereum base layer will focus on being a layer 1. So we'll focus on being a platform for platforms, right? So instead of most users interacting with the Ethereum base layer directly, most users will interact with layer 2 scaling solutions. So platforms like Optimism, Arbitrum, ZK-Sync, Starknet, Scroll, ZK-Sync, Fuel, Polygon, the list goes on. So most activity, most application will happen on these other platforms. And the goal of the Ethereum base layer will be to provide this very safe and very secure layer on top of which these scaling solutions can live. right? So basically, the layer 1 can focus on being decentralized. The layer 1 can focus on being censorship resistant, on security, and on reliability. So on being a very simple base, or as simple as possible, a base layer that is always there for its users, where it tries really hard to guarantee that anyone can always send transactions onto the layer 1. So if someone tries to send a transaction, they pay enough of a fee, it's guaranteed that it will get on chain, that the chain continues progressing, that it doesn't have like 51% attacks, that it doesn't revert, that it just tries to be as stable as possible, as decentralized as possible in every way. So this is the job of layer 1. Right? But we also have users, right? And users don't just need decentralization and censorship resistance. Users also need things like user-friendliness, low cost, efficiency, speed, right? So, for example, transaction fees last year were about, at one point, more than $5 per transaction, right? And more than $5 per transaction is much too expensive. More than $5 per transaction is affordable for some use cases, like if you're moving large amounts of money, if you have an ENS name that you're only updating once or twice a year. But if you want to use blockchain applications every day, or if you live in a low-income country and you just want to have a username, then even $5 per transaction is already much too expensive, right? So reducing costs for users is very important. Efficiency for users is very important, right? We want it to be possible for users to connect to the blockchain, verify the blockchain, send transactions to the blockchain, do all of this quickly, do all of this without consuming a large amount of resources and speed, right? So when a user sends a transaction, that transaction should be included and should be confirmed very quickly. So these are all things that users need. But these are things that if a layer 1 tries to achieve them directly, that adds a lot of risk to the layer 1, right? Like that adds a lot of risk that the layer 1 might become more centralized. Over the last 2 years, we've been seeing these kind of debates around MEV, miner extractable value, like miners and block producers using custom algorithms to try to extract more profits from ordering transactions, and whether or not that can destabilize the economics of the blockchain. And having more of a split between layer 1 and layer 2, it reduces the risks from those kinds of situations, right? So if a layer 1 tries to do everything, then there's a lot of risks that can come out of that. That can come out of one platform trying to do too much and even needing to keep adding features and keep adapting frequently. So instead, we split the two up, and layer 1 focuses on being decentralized, being scalable, or being secure, being reliable, being censorship resistant, and over time, changing less and less, right? I think a lot of people even have the ideal goal that eventually the layer 1 should almost stop changing completely, right? At some point, the only changes should be for example, changing the cryptography when quantum computers come, so that layer 1 can continue to be safe. And then layer 2 would be the thing that changes more quickly, would be the thing that focuses on scalability, focuses on providing user experience, and layer 2 would still get all of the security and all of the reliability properties from the layer 1 that it is sitting on top of. So this is the goal, right? And over the last 2 years, there has been a very large amount of progress in these roll-up systems. About 2 weeks ago at ETH in Paris, a lot of the ZK EVM implementations made some major announcements. So ZK EVMs basically means zero knowledge, ZK Snark based, so based on zero knowledge proofs. Tools that can verify Ethereum blocks, right? So you can take an Ethereum block or an Ethereum transaction, put that inside of a rollup, and you can have a very short, very small cryptographic proof that can be verified on chain to prove that the entire block is correct, but where the chain itself does not have to verify the entire block. Instead of verifying the entire block, you verify one very small proof. right? So ZK snarks are a very powerful technology for scalability. We have been talking about ZK snarks a lot for the last 2 or 3 years, and I think we'll continue talking about them even more for the next 5 to 7 years. But there's a very good reason why, right? Because ZK snarks let you prove a very big computation once, and then have a very small proof where everyone only needs to do a little bit of work to verify it. So doing this for an Ethereum block, where the Ethereum rules are fairly complicated, has been a challenge, but there are a lot of teams doing a very good job of implementing it. And last month, all of these teams have made some excellent big announcements. They've been showing a lot of progress. In addition to these, what I call pure ZK EVMs, there's also projects that are not quite ZK EVMs. So ZK Sync is one, and Starkware with their Cairo language. There's a compiler from Solidity contracts to Cairo that's being developed. So that approach is a little bit less compatible with Ethereum, but it's also a bit more efficient. So there's a trade-off there. And in the optimistic rollup space, Optimism and Arbitrum have seen huge improvements in their efficiency, in their simplicity, in their maturity, in their stability. Just a lot of things about Optimism and Arbitrum have improved a lot in the last 2 years, right? And these are just a few projects. So there's a lot of other layer 2 projects as well. And Ethereum's layer 2 ecosystem is this very big space right now where there's just lots of people that are trying out all of these new and very different strategies for how to create a scalable environment that applications can live in, and where users can actually have very, very quick, very fast, and very cheap transactions that look and feel the same way that they do on Ethereum today. So rollups are important, right? So how will Ethereum post-merge better support rollups? So dank sharding is probably the biggest thing that we are going to be working on after the merge. So we have been thinking about sharding almost also since the project started. So in 2015, people who have been in the Ethereum community for a long time, they might remember I published a long 50-page paper talking about how to do blockchain sharding and some very early ideas for doing that. So those ideas have continued to be worked on, and more things have happened. And now those ideas have matured, those ideas have evolved, and after the rollup-centric roadmap, those ideas have become a lot simpler, right? Because once you have a rollup-centric roadmap, once you have this separation between layer 1 and layer 2, it turns out that layer 1 does not have to shard computation. It does not have to shard transactions. It does not have to worry about, how do we balance which transactions go on this shard, which transactions go on this shard. The problem becomes much simpler. The problem is how to distribute verification of data. So basically, the way that dank sharding works is we have this new concept of a data transaction, and a data transaction contains a pointer to a data blob. A data blob is just a large piece of data, and the Ethereum blockchain does not verify that data, right? Or it does not verify anything about that data. The data is just a piece of data, 124 kilobytes. You can have anything inside of that piece of data, and the blockchain is just there to verify that it exists, right? So the way that a node in Ethereum will work in dank sharding is that there will still be this central beacon chain. So there will still be this Ethereum chain, same as it exists today. And nodes would still download this chain. It would still check this chain directly. But nodes would not download the data blobs directly. Instead, they'll use this protocol called data availability sampling to check these data blobs indirectly. So instead of downloading the full data blob, every node will only download a few random small pieces of a data blob. So the idea here is to make this process of checking data much more efficient, right? So inside of every block, the data blobs together would be about 16 megabytes, but every node would only needs to download maybe 100 or 200 kilobytes. So trying to make a chain that can process a larger amount of data, but at the same time keep it very decentralized because every node only needs to process a very small amount of data. So this is dank sharding, right? So what dank sharding does is it allows the layer 1 to cheaply provide a large amount of space that you can put data on. And it's the job of the rollups to use this data and basically to kind of compress a user's transactions and to put those transactions inside of that data. And that's where the very cheap transactions and the scalability for layer 2s can come from. So full dank sharding is something that has taken a long time and will take a long time. So before we are finished with full dank sharding, there is this proposal called proto dank sharding that is actively being developed. There's already implementations of it, and the plan is to try to finish it as soon as possible. And proto dank sharding basically says, well, we'll make these data blobs smaller. We're not going to implement data availability sampling yet. But we're still going to give users some more data that they can use in order so that rollups can scale more, so that we can have more space for our transactions. So EIP 4844 proto dank sharding, this is also being developed. Now, Verkle trees. So I mentioned Verkle trees briefly, right? The basic idea behind Verkle trees is fairly simple. Right, so the goal of basically, it's a different kind of tree structure that stores what we call the state. So it stores things like accounts, it stores things like smart contracts, it stores storage, balances, how much ether every account has, what the code of every smart contract is. And Verkle trees store it in a different format that makes it much easier to prove what specific accounts are. So it makes it much easier to prove that this account has 100 ether, this smart contract has this piece of code, this smart contract has this storage. And the goal of this is to make it possible to build what we call stateless clients, right? So right now, an Ethereum node requires about 500 gigabytes of storage, right? It's pretty big. With Verkle trees, with stateless clients, you will be able to verify Ethereum blocks without needing any storage at all. Right? The entire client will just run in memory. So it will become much easier to run a node that verifies Ethereum blocks, that does kind of fully verifies the chain, participates in the chain as a validator, all of those things, right? It'll become much easier. And this also maybe even opens the door to making the layer 1 bigger and to making the layer 1 also have more space over time, right? So and then after this, longer term improvement, single swap finality, right? So the idea of single swap finality, basically, instead of the current proof of stake chain, where it only takes it takes about 10 minutes to fully confirm, to fully finalize every block. With single swap finality, blocks can be finalized almost immediately, right? So within 30 seconds. So the goal of all of these changes is, I think, one, to make the layer 1 more secure, to make the layer 1 stronger, to make the layer 1 more decentralized, but also to make the layer 1 a better platform on top of which all of these roll-up projects that people are working on can be built, right? So all of these different improvements that we talk about, right? So Verkle trees, they're there to make it easier to run an Ethereum node so that more people can run Ethereum nodes, so that more people can fully verify the chain. At the same time as this, there's also work that's happening with light clients. So even if you don't want to fully verify Ethereum blocks, you can verify parts of the Ethereum consensus. And so it will become easier and easier to have a wallet to participate in Ethereum without having to trust in Fira, for example, right? It will be much easier to have an experience where you can connect to the chain without having all of these centralized intermediaries in the middle that you have to trust to control. In order to just get information about what's going on or about what you're doing. So proto dank sharding creates more space for rollups, right? It basically makes it it creates more space so that rollups have the ability to include more transactions so that rollups can have higher scalability. And so that all of these platforms that people are working on are going to actually be able to support a very large number of transactions, right? So just to give some data here, so Ethereum today, it can process about 20 transactions per second. Depending on how complex those transactions are, right? If they're simple transactions, it could go up to, I think, about 60. If they're transactions like they are today, on average about 20, and then very complicated transactions less than 20. With rollups today, if everyone switched to rollups today, then rollups could process maybe somewhere between 2,000 and 6,000 transactions per second, depending on how complex they are. Right, and this is assuming that the rollups are fully optimized, right? There's still a lot of work that needs to be done in the rollups themselves to make them more efficient and to make them cheaper. So I actually published a diagram of this on Twitter about an hour ago, where I talked about how you can use compression to make transactions inside of rollups take up less space, and this will just make rollups even cheaper as well, right? So the layer 1 is getting better, which will make rollups cheaper. Rollups are getting better, which will make rollups even cheaper. And so we can expect to see Ethereum a few years from now being hundreds of times cheaper to send transactions, or have hundreds of times more users than it does today, or both. So a lot of things are happening and with rollups, and the chain is improving and expanding in a lot of ways to better support rollups. And rollups are doing a lot at improving in all of these things, right? And layer 1 is doing a lot to improve on its decentralization, and to just continue to be a better platform that allows all of these different layer 2 protocols to live together, to live on top of Ethereum, to benefit from sharing the same security. So layer 2s do not have to worry about having their own validator pools, worrying about their own 51% attacks. Layer 2s can just take advantage of the security that Ethereum provides and add their own scalability and user experience on top, which is a very powerful improvement. So that's the rollup-centric roadmap. This is something that 2 years ago was a theory, and 2 years ago was an idea and a suggestion. But over the last 2 years, it has actually been happening. We've seen a lot of improvements to rollups. We are about to see the Ethereum merge happen. So the Ethereum merge is the switch to proof of stake. So what's left until the merge, right? Basically, next week we're expecting to see the merge of the Robson testnet. So this is the last Ethereum merge or the last testnet merge that's going to happen before we merge the Ethereum main network. And people are the current expected timeline is that if there are no problems, then the mainnet merge will happen sometime in mid to late September. So the mainnet merge is looking very close. People who have been following the process very closely, who have been participating in the process, are very excited. And lots of people on the research side, and especially for the last 2 years on the development side, have worked very hard to get proof of stake to the point where it is now. And very soon, hopefully within 2 months, the merge will finally be here. And Ethereum will fully be a proof of stake network, much more secure, much more difficult to attack. And it will use more than 99.9% less energy than the Ethereum proof of work network does today, right? So a lot of proof of stake itself is only the first step, right? So after proof of stake, there's all of these different improvements: sharding to improve scalability, vertical trees to improve decentralization, single swap finality to improve security. Just all of these things that are happening in the layer 1, and the goal is to bring the Ethereum layer 1 to this place where it can be a very good layer 1 for supporting all of these very scalable layer 2 solutions that are building on top of it, and where users and applications can move on, live on top of these layer 2s and pay much lower fees even than they pay today. And to get to a point where layer 1 can become this kind of more stable and more robust thing that actually does not need to change frequently, right? So this is, I think, one of the other like really big ideas behind the 2-layer roadmap, right? Basically, that it's not actually true that like layer 1 needs to keep on changing quickly and needs to keep on improving forever in order to kind of keep giving users an experience that keeps improving forever, right? Layer 1 just needs to make some very important changes right now, but after that, like it just needs to be stable. It needs to keep slowly improving, slowly expanding space for data, and that might happen by itself as computers get better with Moore's law. And the work of like constantly kind of and actively improving user experience and improving speed can mostly be a layer 2 thing, right? And I think this is something that's actually happening. Light client infrastructure, right? This is the last piece that I mentioned briefly. So this is another kind of decentralization improvement. Basically, for mobile wallets, for wallets inside of browsers, so MetaMask, the Brave wallet, the Status wallet, any wallet on your phone. Like right now, most of those wallets have to trust like some centralized provider, so they have to trust Infura, for example. And the Ethereum base layer after the merge has been designed with the goal of making it as easy as possible for users to verify things about the chain without having to trust a centralized provider, right? So instead of having to trust a central provider, users will be able to just verify some proofs. So following the chain as a light client will require maybe somewhere between like I think 20 kilobytes and 100 kilobytes a day. So extremely cheap, almost as cheap as being a Bitcoin light client. It can be a program that just runs inside your browser, runs inside your phone, uses a very tiny amount of battery power. And this is just something that mobile wallets will be able to include and will be able to plug into. And so even users' experience of interacting with a chain can become much safer, right? I think this is also an important topic to talk about because, like, I mean, we saw, even yesterday with the Solana wallet hack, right? Like, it actually is dangerous to have these centralized dependencies, right? Now, in that case, like, it was a very serious example. Like, from what I saw, they ended up actually sending like people's seed phrases over to a server, which is, of course, like a very dangerous thing to do, right? But like, if you can. Even today with Infura, like if all you can do is like take over a server and have it show the user different things, then like that can also steal a lot of money from people, right? Like that could get people to put wrong values in their Uniswap transactions, like make trades where those trades end up losing a lot of money. Like you can trick users into doing a lot of things if you just send them fake data about the chain, right? And so having more secure light clients that verify the chain directly, also a great improvement for security, and it's improves the security of the chain, improves the experience of users. So a lot of kind of very positive things can come out of that too, right? So that is the maybe next 3 to 5 years. So some goals for the longer term, right? So reducing the rate of changes over time. So if we want the layer 1 to be to become more stable and more dependable, then layer 1 cannot change as quickly as it changes forever, right? And part of this is security. Like systems that change more slowly can be more easily secure than systems that change very quickly. And some of it is also just like the decentralization of Ethereum, right? Like it's like Ethereum can. For Ethereum to continue to be decentralized and become more decentralized, like it has to reduce over time this dependence on like this question of, what is the core developer team going to do next? At some point, like the core developer team should not even have the ability to like make very rapid changes quickly. But in order to get to it, like we actually have to like go through this process, right? And at least do the changes that are important. making it easier to run a light client, making it easier to run a full client, so making it easier to run a node that verifies the chain. Find some way to support faster confirmations. So when you send a transaction, today, usually it takes like maybe 30 seconds before the transaction gets included. And EAP 1559 actually improved this a lot already by making the fee market more stable. The merge will improve this by making block times more stable. But we think that there might be ways to make it basically to confirm, give users a confirmation that their transactions will be included, even faster than in one block. So give them like some kind of assurance, some kind of a guarantee, even within the span of one block. We can do this without centralizing the validator network. So this is one of kind of important research goals for us, and also finally just continue to improve decentralization, continue to improve robustness, and continue to kind of make the layer one into being a more secure, more decentralized layer one, and a layer one where it's actually possible and there's enough tools so that people can continue to build these amazing layer two scaling solutions and protocols on top of it. So, thank you.